you're going to love living in Burbank. Hi, friends. I'm John Baldwin with John Hart Real Estate, and I wanted to give you the grand tour of Burbank and kind of the rundown of what moving to Burbank can entail. So let's get into it. I've got the first page, Google Maps pulled up, and I thought we would run through the basic geography of Burbank before getting into, some of the things that, you can expect living in Burbank. So here we are. As you can see, we have the city of Burbank outlined on the map, and running right through the middle of town, you have the 5 freeway. And this is one of the big freeways in California, running the whole length of the state. But as you can see here, it kind of just cuts right through the middle, and you have the east half and the west half. In the east half of Burbank, you have the core downtown area, restaurants, shops, taller buildings, office buildings, that kind of thing. And then you also have a lot of residential areas. You have the flat areas on the east side, and then you get the slope. And as you can see here on the east side where my cursor is, this is all mountains. These are the Verdugo Mountains. So you get a lot of little nooks and crannies. You get a bunch of view property, but then you also get a bunch of canyon properties and things that are kind of not necessarily view property, but have the benefit of kind of being in a cool little nook in the side of the mountains or a canyon running up, that kind of thing. So a lot of people love living on the east side up in the hills, looking out at the whole valley and all the lights that are below you, and it's a really cool spot. And then on the west side of the 5, we have several different neighborhoods as well, and they all kind of are they're a little different than the east side in that you have sort of very distinct areas where the east side, kind of the whole east side of the 5 is one big area in my mind. You have in the north, you have the airport area, sort of North Burbank there where my cursor is kind of right in the middle. Then you have Magnolia Park, which I'm a fan of. I had my office there for several years. This is like your more traditional suburban neighborhoods, with, wide streets, tree-lined streets, typical houses, 50s, 60s houses, lots of 40s houses too. And then like running along Magnolia, like Friday nights, you're going to have like a bunch of food trucks and music and movies, or not movies, but like community events kind of stuff right there on Magnolia, out in the open. Everybody's out and about. So it's a really cool thing that happens during the summer Friday nights in Magnolia Park. But then you also have these cool neighborhoods like in Southeast Burbank, in this area here where the 5 and the 134 kind of meet, right near the LA Zoo. You have the Rancho Equestrian District, and this district actually straddles the line between Glendale and Burbank. So there's part of Glendale's in it and part of Burbank's in it. But this is an area where you actually have neighbors who will have horses. You'll see people riding their horses in the neighborhoods. You'll have people going into the trails that are, up in Griffith Park here from near the Los Angeles Zoo. So they'll go riding their horses up there, but there you will actually see people bringing their horses through the neighborhood. So it's kind of cool, especially if you love animals. So, and then you have sort of in the middle here, near where Warner Brothers is, you have the media district. You have Disney, Nickelodeon, Warner Brothers, obviously, but you have a lot of the movie, TV, animation, post-production, audio, the studio rentals, so like Surreal and Quixote and all these companies that are involved in the movie industry are here, right here in the media district in Burbank. Lots of post-production, lots of sound stages, lots of things like that. And then you also have sort of in Southwest Burbank here, and this one also straddles the city line between Los Angeles and Burbank. You have a neighborhood called Toluca Lake. I'm a big fan of Toluca Lake. Toluca Lake is what I call the hidden gem of the valley. It's this really cool little island of awesomeness surrounded by Burbank and North Hollywood and LA. But it's this little pocket of neatness. And it's where the Bob Hope estate was. It's a really cool little neighborhood. But the cool thing about the Burbank side of Toluca Lake is you get Burbank services. So you have the Burbank Police Department, Burbank Water and Power, Burbank School District. Burbank trash services, things like that. So you're not dealing with the bigger Los Angeles side of things where you have LAUSD, LADWP, LAPD, and that kind of thing. So you're dealing with a much smaller city. You're part of the greater Los Angeles metropolitan area, but because Burbank is its own city, the city is more responsive to its citizens. So you can actually get to the planning department and get something done if you're adding to onto your house. You can actually call the Burbank Police Department and have them show up in a few minutes instead of 40 minutes. So there are lots of little things that make living in Burbank fantastic. But let's jump through some more of these. So that's the general layout. There's also like this north central area here is kind of near the airport. One of the cool things is Burbank Airport, the Bob Hope Airport is a really good neighbor. They actually have a program where they will provide extra windows, extra insulation, and soundproofing for the houses that are most affected. So the ones that are in within a certain proximity of the airport, they actually kind of help you out knowing that airplanes are loud. But for the most part, I mean, I've sold houses really close to that airport, and people don't really notice after a while. It kind of fades to the background and just becomes background noise. But just something to be aware of is, Bob Hope Airport is right there. It's super convenient. I believe Bob Hope Airport is a Southwest hub, so you can actually take Southwest out of there and not have to go to LAX. So lots of benefits to having Burbank Airport right there. In addition to that, if you have guests coming in, having the airport there, there's also airport hotels there. So that's just another little unique benefit of having an airport right nearby. But let's look at another page. Let's look at what's going on Google and some of the photos and just kind of give you an idea of what the city looks like. So this one's from the New York Times there. This one is what you can kind of expect a lot of the city of Burbank. This is like what Magnolia Park is going to look like. Lots of parts of town are going to look like this. Your traditional little shops, things that have been around forever. And just it's just such a neat little area. And then, you've got all of this kind of stuff. You've got the backside of the Hollywood Hills, basically. Maybe that's a better way to give you an idea where it is. It is the backside of the Hollywood Hills. You can go take a hike around the Hollywood sign. And the cool thing about Burbank is you're so close to everything that, you can commute to downtown LA. You can commute to Pasadena. You can commute to the beach communities, and it's not a horrendous drive or anything like that. But I thought I'd show you the Wikipedia page about Burbank is actually pretty cool as well. Kind of some of the information about the founding of the area. When the San Fernando Valley was first, I guess, colonized or lived in, you had all sorts of different ranches kind of created, and then it just over time it just evolved into what we see today. And if you go back far enough in the property records are really interesting. You'll see pretty much like the east half of the valley was all North Hollywood, and the west half of the valley was all Van Nuys. And then over time, little cities got carved out, and it became what it is today. So there's just a lot of neat history here. So if you want to get into some of the history of like the indigenous people, the Spanish era, the Mexican era, the early American era, there's a lot of cool stuff here. The railroads and things like that, because of where Burbank sits, it's sort of the last city before you get into Glendale. So it's sort of the corner of the San Fernando Valley as you're leading into Los Angeles and into Glendale and Pasadena. So had a really good location for railroads and things like that. But I can't say enough good things about it. A lot of people move to Burbank specifically to get their kids in school, or they are thinking about, hey, they work in media, or they want to have a good commute to wherever their job is in the greater Los Angeles area. So there's a lot of stuff here. This is a page I found earlier today. This is travelmamas.com, things to do in Burbank. And they talk about the studio tours, Universal City. And what just came out is the Super Mario Brothers World just came out, and that coincides with the Mario Brothers movie that just had a huge opening. I think something like 400 million worldwide. So a great time to come and see what Universal Studios is doing with their Super Nintendo Super Mario Brothers World. But the Warner Brothers tour is super cool, especially like as you can see there, the Warner Brothers water tower. I grew up watching the Animaniacs. I grew up watching Batman the animated series, and that water tower is prominent in both of those cartoons. If you watch the opening to Animaniacs or the Batman the animated series, you will recognize that water tower. So that's always a neat thing. And then you get the superhero stuff, some Batmobile stuff, and I don't know. I'm also like I'm old enough that Friends, the '90s. Like when I was in college, everybody would sit around and we would watch Friends because that's what all the girls wanted to do. So it was one of those things. If we wanted to hang out with the girls, we ended up watching Friends. So I know every episode of Friends. So it's kind of cool to see, this the Friends set here, which that whole show was filmed right here in Burbank. So lots of neat stuff like that. Wonder Woman, Universal Studios, yeah, the Harry Potter world, the Super Nintendo world, as you can see now. But there's a lot of cool stuff to do in Burbank. What can I say? I'm a big fan. Um, and let's see what else do they have here. Universal City Walk. I don't know Voodoo Donut, but those look decadent. And then like there's just so much neat stuff here. The Walt Disney Studio Tour, very cool stuff. And then all right, we're getting into the more of the basics: restaurants, shops, wineries, that kind of thing. Arts festival. That is a this is actually a hotel, and you can see it from the 5 freeway, and it's those bright colors are you can't miss it. So pretty cool to see. I believe that used to be a Holiday Inn at one point, but some really cool stuff. As I said, I'm a big fan of Burbank. Here they are talking about Magnolia Park. Let's see what their description is. A charming section of Burbank, just minutes from the downtown area. Along Magnolia Boulevard, you'll find boutique shops, vintage clothing shops, and antique stores. You may also spot food trucks parked in this part of town. This is what I was talking about. The Friday night food trucks, music, like entertainment, community events. It's a really cool thing. Happens, I think, most Fridays during the summer. And what can I say? It's a really cool community event. And then there's lots of little things. There's the Chandler Bike Path, the Hollywood sign, and so many things. And then horses, obviously talking about the equestrian district too. So lots of little things here that I think Burbank is a very good community. I think it's one of those areas that you should definitely consider if you're moving to California, if you're moving to the LA area. Most people move to Burbank because it's a safe community. It has a responsive government, basically a police department that isn't so big that you're just anonymous. You can actually call them and they'll come and help you. So there are lots of little things in Burbank that make it just an extraordinary area to live in. And I think it's just a great neighborhood. So I'd love for you to give me a call and we can talk about what's going on in Burbank, talk about your housing search, what you can expect living in Burbank, cost of living, that kind of thing. And let's get your house sold.